Moving in with my boyfriend, M23, after a whirlwind year apart has me questioning everything. You always twist things, he says, while I feel unheard and drained. After a recent miscarriage and facing his defensive nature, I wonder, am I ignoring red flags before it's too late? Summary: I seek advice on how to address my frustrations constructively with my boyfriend. I am concerned that the small issues bothering me are accumulating into something more significant that I should not ignore, especially as our lives become more intertwined. I apologize for the lengthy message. This may be difficult for mobile users. I do not want to break up. I love my boyfriend and we have managed to work through problems in the past. However, I feel exhausted and need to express some concerns without worrying about my tone or making him feel attacked. I would appreciate any advice on how to move forward. This may come across as a rant, and I am unsure how justified my feelings are. I understand that there are two sides to every situation, so please recognize that this perspective may be biased after feeling so fatigued and somewhat hurt. I feel guilty even writing this, but I believe I could be heading into troubled waters. I am a 25-year-old female and my boyfriend is a 23-year-old male. We have been together for nearly a year. We lived at opposite ends of the country, so I drove 7 hours each way every couple of weeks to visit him. He has a stable and good job, and since I was living with family while settling back from traveling, we decided I would move down to live with him, which we are doing in 2 weeks. Currently, I am staying with his parents, where I have been for 2 months while I secured a job here. The past couple of months have been challenging for us. I struggled immensely when I moved here and discovered I was pregnant, which led me to realize I would need to have an abortion. However, it developed into a complicated miscarriage, and 3 weeks ago, I was hemorrhaging in the accident and emergency department, where he was absolutely wonderful in the hospital by my side. Honestly, the pregnancy and miscarriage made me difficult to be around and nearly drove us apart. I am still extremely exhausted, having lost a significant amount of blood and taken an unpaid week off work. I did not have substantial savings, and my car broke down last week due to wear and tear, which will be costly to fix, adding to my overall stress along with the trauma I have experienced. I do not have any friends here, and I have lacked the energy and time needed to establish a social network due to my rushed transition into a somewhat unsatisfactory job to facilitate my move. I did not have friends where I moved from either, as it was only a temporary situation, but I remained in the country when our relationship began. I am an artistic and creative individual, but the area has proven to be relatively expensive and frankly dull. I wanted to explore martial arts but faced resistance, and after some back-and-forth discussion he suggested Pilates instead, ultimately backing down. He feels disappointed that I have not engaged more, but I have been incredibly tired and have made significant efforts to connect with his family, join his activities, and perform well at work. I have taken a keen interest in my boyfriend's hobby so that we can spend time together, which occupies most weekends and weeknights, and he is frequently preoccupied with his phone or thoughts related to it. However, it is not my hobby, and I feel somewhat lost as a result. While I love to travel, I agreed to stay settled for a couple of years to build our savings for future adventures together. Although I was apprehensive about this, he has assured me that we will eventually go. If we were not together, I would likely have been traveling during this time. I remained in my previous location for a year for the sake of our relationship. Due to feeling unsettled and exhausted, I wonder if I am overreacting to the issues that are bothering me. He has consistently praised my emotional intelligence, but it has felt at times like I am teaching a child how to be reasonable with emotions. Being an only son, he can sometimes exhibit short-sightedness. I am writing this after we agreed to have a fun discussion about taking a few days away for my upcoming birthday, yet he downloaded a PlayStation game related to his hobby and sat beside me in silence for nearly 2 hours instead. This evening, I cooked dinner for him and his family, which he seldom does, as he usually prefers dining out. This contrasted with my efforts and left me feeling rather disheartened. Earlier, while we were all cleaning the new house this afternoon, I scrubbed the bathroom thoroughly, while he only dusted the blinds on 4 or 5 windows. I hurried home from work because he indicated that his mother wanted to leave early and was quite stressed. It felt off, and I asked him if he had indeed requested we leave early so that he could have time for his hobby. He initially denied it but then admitted to having said yes minutes later because he did not want to be reprimanded. He knows I worry about upsetting his mother, and the small deceit irritates me, especially since it occurs frequently. However, he merely grinned and laughed it off. He is also very forgetful, needing reminders for plans, tasks he promised to complete, and he requires pushing to do most chores. He won't do laundry on his own and must be reminded to shower even if he develops a heat rash. He pushes back when I nag him about it, complains about his physique but will not go to the gym, and when I encourage him, he becomes annoyed. Furthermore, he will not unload the dishwasher unless he needs to load it. He does not walk his family dog because he is slow, so his parents ask me to do it, even though both of us work from home most of the time. He has had an overbearing and intense mother, which I believe contributes to his reluctance to take on tasks that he does not choose to do himself. I remain hopeful, and he reassures me that things will change when we move in a couple of weeks, but it is becoming tiresome. He also mentioned that he would quit using his marijuana vape, yet he found a new one the same day he ran out of his supply and uses it daily. While it is not overwhelming, he knows I disapprove and promised he would stop, marking it as a safeguard rather than a habit, but he indulges in it every day. When I point this out, he either becomes irritated or dismisses it with laughter. During arguments, we both exhibit anger and can say hurtful words we do not mean, but he expects to walk away. I trained myself to avoid this behavior, yet if we disagree and my tone is rude, even though I believe it is significantly milder than what he often displays, he calls me out on it. He is incredibly defensive, especially when I am panicking immediately after he unintentionally triggers me by being too rough during intimate moments, particularly given my sensitivity following the miscarriage. His parents are notably intense, and he has stated that he intends to seek therapy. He frequently declares that he is a terrible boyfriend out of the blue, and I remind him that this is something he dislikes hearing from his mother, but he brushes it off. He claims I always twist things, and he often apologizes. Honestly, he does apologize a lot, but sometimes it seems out of nowhere. He can be quite hurtful and self-centered, a difficult combination during these past few months. I genuinely love him. I appreciate his drive, passion, and kindness towards others, and he is very sociable. My family adores him. He is also extremely complimentary, has never given me reason to feel jealous, speaks highly of me to others, and is quite generous financially, enjoying spending money he earns. However, navigating this relationship is becoming increasingly challenging, especially as we cannot even commit to discussing how responsibilities will be shared once we move in together, aside from a vague 60-40 understanding. Recently, while at our new house to take measurements, I found him sitting on the sofa engrossed in his phone, and I had to ask him for assistance. If I do not push for discussions, they simply do not occur, and this applies to various topics. He continues to mention that he plans to propose this year and emphasizes that we will never break up because we can work through any issues, which we do. Nevertheless, it can be emotionally draining at times, especially since I feel the need to explain everything in detail, and he often responds with an "oh, right." This may sound trivial, but today I was stressed managing work, finances, and my car. He approached me to express that he didn't mind missing the trip and was being easygoing to avoid adding to my stress. I wish he had offered assistance or made suggestions instead, as this would only add to my never-ending list of things to discuss, or else they will remain unaddressed. He says I am indecisive and prefers when I express my wants directly, but I am simply worn out. At the beginning of our relationship, I appreciated his masculine demeanor and willingness to take charge, having been hyper-independent my whole life due to a traumatic childhood. I found comfort in this and his commitment to our relationship, bringing up ideas like marriage and the seriousness of our bond early on. Yet, unless there is a crisis, which he handles exceptionally well, this quality seems to have diminished. I promised myself I would not assume the role of teaching a man to communicate his feelings, plan our dates, or request simple gestures like buying flowers or asking me if I want coffee when he makes some. But I feel like I am back in that position. I'm currently feeling anxious, possibly needing to release some pent-up frustrations, seek trauma therapy for the past couple of months, and have some time for us to establish our own space, as I know this will significantly ease his stress. I recognize my biases and am aware that I contribute to our arguments and stubbornness. Both of us are strong-willed and prefer being right, and we are working on that. Despite everything, I believe we can overcome any issues together when we genuinely try. I would greatly appreciate some advice on how to approach these matters constructively. He has tentatively agreed to couples therapy, and I am eager to pursue this, but I want to ensure he does not feel attacked. Story 2. Gender labels feel utterly fictional to me. I've never felt like a woman, I just am. Experiencing scrutiny, shame, and medical procedures shaped me, but my identity is just personality, not femininity. Why do we equate clothes with identity? Can you really declare what you haven't truly experienced? The entire concept of identifying with a gender seems absurd to me, though perhaps not for the reasons you might assume if you continue reading. Could you help me understand? I find the subject immensely frustrating. To begin, I believe that femininity and masculinity are entirely socially constructed. We are born as women. We are not born with makeup, brushes, dresses, or kindness innately within us. Men are not born with footballs, muscles, or an inability to express their emotions. These traits have been imposed on us throughout history. Some women do not exhibit empathy, girlishness, or any of the stereotypical characteristics that society expects of us. Similarly, some men would prefer to avoid leadership roles or conceal their feelings. Much of the time, these expectations stem from societal teachings, which is why stereotypes have developed. Without these lessons, the world and the individuals within it would likely be vastly different. Despite this, I believe that a man can embody femininity. He can be kind and nurturing, enjoy being a homemaker, and wear dresses if those traits resonate with him more naturally. In the same way, a woman can be masculine. Alternatively, we can exist as androgynous individuals. We are simply people with diverse personalities, and humans are such complex beings that it seems almost ridiculous to conform to a gender designation and confine ourselves to categories. Presenting as female or male appears to be a means of assimilating into society. It all feels entirely fabricated. The only objective truth is that we are, at a biological level, either male or female, regardless of where we find ourselves on the gender spectrum. What I do not comprehend is why we must label our identities beyond medical necessity. For instance, women do need to be identified as women in medical facilities for appropriate care, such as for certain tests or conditions that typically affect the sexes differently or more frequently. However, why is it necessary to establish whether an individual feels more feminine or masculine? Why is this information significant? Personally, when a person assigned male at birth states that they feel like a woman internally, I struggle to understand it. I have never felt like a woman, I simply am one. If you were to ask me about womanhood, I would describe it as enduring scrutiny regarding my body as a teenager, being labeled as flat-chested, not being deemed pretty enough, starting my period and the embarrassment of leaking on school chairs, learning to manage that experience while continuing with life, discovering in health class that my anatomy was not considered the desirable kind, feeling discomfort due to that body part in tight clothing, and realizing that not all women share these challenges. At 14 years old, I underwent labiaplasty. I battled with family members regarding my right to make choices about my unborn child, insisting that it was my body and my decision, and they had to accept that. Then someone disclosed my pregnancy to my entire workplace despite my request for confidentiality, leading me to realize that my partner was unsuitable and that both my child and I would be caught in his despair for life. I felt unable to admit to anyone that I was terminating my pregnancy due to the judgment from those around me. Going through the experience alone, lying on the operating table with instruments and anesthesia entering my system, waking up in tears over my loss and the emptiness it left behind, dealing with the aftermath, the guilt, and now as an older woman facing pressure to become a mother, grappling with erratic cycles that make me wonder if they are a consequence of my past decisions. I worry about infertility because of it. I am aware that menopause will eventually arrive, at which point changes in my body will be ongoing and a reality I will have to confront. There is an expectation for me to take medications and use birth control. This is what womanhood signifies to me. It feels fundamentally about blood, and more blood, along with speculums and expectations. Yet my preferences, likes and dislikes, the friendships I form and hobbies I choose, along with my appreciation for anything feminine, simply represent my personality. That is what constitutes my identity, not my womanhood. The two concepts feel worlds apart. In other words, while being a woman has influenced my life experiences, it does not define who I am. I have never felt like a woman. I merely exist with the experience of being one. Even women who struggle with fertility or who do not have regular periods still face societal expectations regarding those experiences and feel their absence. They have been conditioned similarly and often share some of the same life experiences as I have, particularly concerning our bodies and the various medical interventions we undergo. As a child, I was never drawn to the color pink makeup or any related pursuits. Such things felt like an expectation I needed to conform to. I predominantly wore boys' clothing but never considered myself male. I have no idea what that experience entails. It was simply what I preferred at the time, and my parents allowed me to express myself and explore my interests and fashion choices. Ultimately, I succumbed to societal expectations because I grew weary of standing out. Nowadays, I appreciate feminine aesthetics, but this appreciation has developed over time. It was not a natural inclination. Empathy has always been part of my character, yet it is also something I have learned more about throughout my life journey. I do not believe I am inherently more nurturing or submissive. At times, I need to remind myself to be more caring. Sometimes it feels as though these expectations merely stem from societal norms. All of these factors, including fashion preferences and personality traits, could easily characterize a man if society permitted and encouraged it. That said, if someone wishes to be acknowledged as a woman and referred to as such, I do not perceive any harm in this. If an individual has undergone top and bottom surgery and can pass as a woman, I see no issue with them utilizing women's spaces, as we would have no reason to feel discomfort regarding it. However, I do not think someone should claim to feel like a woman and then enter our changing rooms or spaces on that basis. Many individuals may feel uneasy about men being present in these spaces, and the reasoning behind that discomfort is a separate discussion. This is not necessarily opposition to transgender individuals. Rather, it stems from a lack of understanding. There is a transgender woman who lives on my street and seeks to be recognized as a woman, which I do. I refer to her as she, and allow her to live as she chooses, as it is not my life. Yet she also yells and intimidates others in a manner typically associated with men when she gets angry. I struggle to comprehend why she behaves this way if gender is meant to be based on stereotypical traits. The only aspect of her that appears feminine is her clothing. I do not believe that clothing determines a person's gender identity. I find it exceedingly challenging to accept when transgender individuals assert that they feel like something they have not actually experienced being. I cannot fathom what it is like to be a man. While I can conceptualize the idea, I have never inhabited a man's body or mind to claim that I understand that experience. I do not believe that souls are trapped in the wrong bodies. Rather, I contend that they are trapped in the wrong society. Can one truly proclaim that they wish to become something or someone without having had a genuine experience of being that very thing? I genuinely do not comprehend it at all, and I dislike feeling prejudiced, yet I cannot honestly state that I believe a transgender man is a man or a transgender woman is a woman. You are either feminine or masculine, you are a biological woman or a biological man, and above all, you are a person. Acknowledging the human aspect, I am perfectly willing to address you as you wish to feel more comfortable. Why not? However, I firmly believe that biological sex is rooted in biology and cannot be altered or redefined, while gender represents a completely fabricated role that we play established long ago. People are simply individuals who have their own preferences. We are all engaged in a dispute over absolute fiction concerning gender. To me, gender-affirming care resembles body modification to fit societal norms. I possess a degree of personal experience regarding this issue, as my labiaplasty was necessary for my daily comfort, yet I cannot fully endorse or affirm that it is the correct path. I do not align with either the left or the right, as both arguments tend to circle back and contradict themselves. None of this discussion feels tangible, solid, or factual to me, except for the biological component. Please help me understand. Story 3. I fell for Beatrice, a loving partner with a reclusive family that saw me as their crutch. You're responsible for her happiness now, her mother insisted. I realized I couldn't be their entire universe, but now I must face the truth and break her heart. How do I even begin? I, a 30-year-old male, have been dating my partner, a 26-year-old female non-binary individual, for 7 months, and I am considering ending the relationship. She's very loving, kind, creative, and supportive. However, while we are both autistic, she has needs and requires support that I do not have the capacity to provide on my own, and I have discovered that her family is actively withholding therapy and assistance. They want me to fulfill all of her emotional, mental, and social needs. When I decided to end the relationship, her mother immediately accused me of gaslighting and manipulating her daughter for sex because I did not fight harder, while claiming my intent throughout the relationship was marriage. We met through a dating application called Hickey last year after my birthday. After nearly everyone in my life left me, I withdrew from my main social circle and focused strictly on myself and a few close friends. I stopped going out for others and dedicated most of my energy to my job. We began communicating in August, but our conversations did not remain consistent until September, and we went on our first date in October. We are both autistic but fall on somewhat different ends of the spectrum. I am high-functioning, I have a social life, I work consistently, and I can maintain a fulfilling personal life. My partner, let us refer to her as Beatrice, is mid to high-functioning. She graduated from high school, but her parents allowed her to stay at home until she was 21, requires medication for her mental health, and has not been active outside in over 6 years. She is reclusive and spends an excessive amount of time online, which leads to toxic interactions and experiences of being bullied. Because of her needs, I needed to collaborate with her family throughout the relationship. Her family comes from a wealthy background, and while I respected them, there were significant issues. Every other day, they begin their morning with screaming matches over money at 9 a.m., and their youngest child is low-functioning autistic, and they do little to cultivate empathy and structure. He throws tantrums, and they often cave to his demands. My partner broke her tibia in half over Christmas, and it took her parents almost 3 weeks to take her to a doctor to get a cast. Throughout the relationship, I have faced constant pressure from them to move from my house in New York to New Jersey and to quit my job to either work at their company or for them directly. While the financial offer has been hard to dismiss, I enjoy my job and have worked hard to earn a promotion, allowing flexibility for my personal life. Each time I visit Beatrice, her parents pressure me about the necessity of obtaining a driver's license, claiming it is mandatory for me to move in with Beatrice in an apartment under their name so that I must always be available to drive them to appointments and wherever they wish to go. Beatrice has admittedly not helped the situation. Due to her lack of a social life, she often relies on me to fulfill all of her social and emotional needs. I would talk to her every day multiple times. However, she often becomes so lonely that she inundates my phone with messages upwards of 30 times while I am at work with friends or engaging in my hobbies. We have discussed this previously, and she has promised to respect my boundaries, but she tends to revert to her old habits after a few weeks. Although it is often frustrating, it is a symptom of a larger issue. Beatrice has no social life or support to foster one. She has not had a social life since she graduated high school in 2019, has not undergone therapy in years, and the doctor who treated her tibia indicated that the lack of bone density was a second cause for the injury, as she has been chronically on the computer and phone for years. The absence of support has led me to attempt to teach her on my own, but there is only so much I can do as one individual who grapples with my own mental health struggles while trying to maintain my personal life. Everything reached a breaking point the other day. Beatrice had bombarded my phone dozens of times over the past week because she missed me, even though I talked to her every day. The last time we spent time together was almost a week at my place about 3 weeks ago. I was supposed to spend this weekend with her and her family, but on the morning of, she inundated my phone with nearly 30 messages in just an hour. I had multiple tasks I needed to complete before I could come over, and I could no longer be patient. I informed Beatrice that I was canceling the weekend because I needed space to breathe and requested that she not contact me before Monday. She was upset for crossing my boundaries and agreed, but then her mother intervened. Her mother explained that it was she who had told Beatrice to reach out to me to ascertain when I would be coming over. After I explained the excessive messaging, her mother acknowledged that it was somewhat insensitive, but claimed that my canceling the weekend served as a punishment. I maintained that a boundary is not a punishment and that I was not rewarding that behavior. I was then told that my daughter is not a child, despite how much this family has infantilized her and hindered any development towards Beatrice gaining independence. I remained firm that I was not going over. I received a follow-up call from her mother yesterday asking me to resolve the situation. Beatrice has written dozens of letters throughout their house apologizing to me for violating my boundaries and stating that I need to end the punishment. I reiterated that a boundary is not a punishment and that after Monday, I fully intended to talk to Beatrice and explain myself, but I wanted my space. Their mother's response was that while I may not perceive it as a punishment, they do, and that their feelings take precedence over my annoyance. This devolved into an explanation that this was a symptom of a much larger problem. Beatrice lacks a life outside of me, and I cannot support this on my own. I inquired about the day program and therapy Beatrice was supposed to begin before her ankle injury and discovered that her mother had no intention of fulfilling those plans. Her mother expected me to take on the responsibility of nurturing Beatrice's social skills and providing support if that was even possible. I was told, "You are both autistic, but you were not raised with the notion of having a disability. This is who she is and you must simply accept that." I provided different examples of how Beatrice has the potential to overcome her lack of skills or grasp of understanding, suggesting she could lead a near-normal life if the family actually followed through with the substantial support she requires. Her mother again dismissed me, stating that Beatrice only achieved those accomplishments because of me and that she could not do it alone. Her mother insisted that this is the role I signed up for and that it is my responsibility. I told her I had reached my limit, that this was beyond my capability and not what I was promised at the beginning of the relationship. I was assured that Beatrice would receive therapy and support, not that I would have to be constantly available to be her entire world. The moment I said that, I was accused of taking advantage of her and deceiving her regarding my intentions to marry her. I countered that I had not lied to her, but I could not do it without support from the family, and then I hung up. I am just devastated. I met someone I honestly grew to love, but her needs are simply too much for me to manage. Her family seems to want to offload their child onto me so that they do not have to put in the necessary effort on their end. My partner is not a leech or a parasite. Most of her difficulties are not her fault. Beatrice aspires to lead a semi-normal life with friends, a partner who loves her, and to be appreciated for who she is. Her family refuses to take any action to foster her independence, instead allowing her to remain stuck in a perpetual state of childhood while throwing money at materialistic needs. That is not living, and I know that my partner is capable of more than that with appropriate support. I just cannot provide it alone. I am still trying to figure out what to say when I break up with her tomorrow. My friends suggest that I tell her the truth, but that could lead to more family drama. There is also a chance that Beatrice may not believe me or that her mother will manipulate her into doubting me. I know I need to communicate something, but I am uncertain how to approach it. Frankly, I would prefer to leave a voicemail, but everyone insists that I owe her the truth after 7 months, even if she may not believe it. I am simply sad and disappointed by the situation and Beatrice's family. In summary, I must break up with my partner because her family is withholding essential support and resources for her autism and mental health issues. I cannot provide the necessary support alone, and the situation is beyond my capacity. How should I handle this? Story 4. Caught my boyfriend lying about his porn addiction for 2 years. You should have seen my face when I found out. Turns out he'd been hiding everything, even his Reddit history. Now he's begging for a second chance while I'm left questioning it all. What's next? TLDR, I caught my boyfriend lying and hiding a pornography addiction. I do not typically seek relationship advice on Reddit because I am somewhat apprehensive about receiving criticism. However, my boyfriend and I, who have been together for 2 years, are currently dealing with some issues of broken trust, and I am unsure how to proceed. The situation began when I jokingly asked him, while we were watching a show, if he still watched pornography. This question made him somewhat anxious, so I inquired again since he had previously told me he no longer engaged with it. I am quite a direct person, and I am certain that I have asked him more than once during our relationship. He eventually admitted that he had not been on his browser for a while and did not want to show me what he had because I would be upset. I insisted he be honest with me, and he revealed his incognito browser which still contained videos. This revelation struck me particularly hard because, during our first year together, I had made it clear that his following Instagram models made me uncomfortable, and he agreed to unfollow them. He is aware of my feelings about pornography and social media, as it can be very exploitative. He insisted that he had not watched pornography since the middle of last year, and I initially believed him. However, while he was sleeping, I felt uneasy and decided to check his browsing history. I know it was wrong and I shouldn't have done it, but ultimately it helped clarify things. I accessed his browser using my Face ID to look through his incognito history and discovered that he had been using Reddit. The dates on Reddit were significantly more recent than he claimed, such as 12 days ago, 17 days ago, and 21 days ago. I cannot adequately describe the overwhelming feeling I experienced when I scrolled through his history and realized he was still watching pornography. I ended up crying at 3 a.m. while he slept next to me, unsure of how to handle the situation. The following day we had a heart-to-heart where he profusely apologized and expressed his deep remorse for upsetting me. Although I had seen his phone the night before, I asked him to show it to me again. Unbeknownst to him, I had already gone through it, and I discovered that he had deleted everything. His Reddit account was totally wiped clean, and only safe-for-work content remained. I questioned why his history was empty, and he claimed it had either been deleted or that he had simply removed it. I cannot recall which. Regardless, it was gone. I should have been honest about what I had seen, but for some reason I chose to believe him. I thought perhaps he had shared his account with someone else, so it could not be his activity. The reason I believed him was that he repeatedly stated he was sorry, and this was the first time in our relationship that I had seen him cry. It may sound silly, but I was moved by his emotion. Even though I had evidence on my phone, I convinced myself that it could have been his brother's account, which was clearly denial. The next time I saw him was about 2 weeks later. I invited him over so we could talk. My plan was to gradually reveal the truth to see how much he would lie. I already knew the answer, I just wanted him to admit it. We walked around for a while, but I lacked the courage to initiate the conversation, so I suggested we go home. He then called me, crying in my local park, prompting me to rush over with water and food. We sat on a bench and talked. I asked him why everything in his Reddit history was gone and mentioned that I had seen it before he deleted it. He swore he had no idea what happened, and I began to doubt my own memory, thinking perhaps something went wrong. I repeatedly expressed my confusion. When I asked if he shared the account, he again said no. To confirm there was no possibility that his brother could have accessed the account, I requested he call his brother. He did so in front of me, and after some silence and my continued questioning, he eventually admitted that it was indeed his account and that he had deleted the history. Throughout all this, I remained relatively calm while he was crying. This was the second time I had seen him cry in our relationship. He told me he would change and that he did not want to make me sad or angry by telling me the truth. I felt relieved knowing that the evidence I had was valid. I had doubted myself because I did not have a screenshot of the account name, but as I said, everything matched on his cleared phone since only safe-for-work content was left. He essentially gaslighted me into thinking I was crazy for believing that Reddit randomly deleted history. The next day, I reviewed all the evidence I had and tried to find the videos from his browser to determine whether he had stopped watching pornography based on their upload dates. I was unable to locate anything since he had used a niche website that did not display the date. All I had was the Reddit evidence now. The following day, I decided to meet with him again. He presented me with a card stating he would change, expressing, "I am sorry for everything and for lying to you. It was not right. By hiding the truth, I thought I was protecting you from feeling upset. I realize now that it was the wrong approach and I am genuinely sorry. I acknowledge that I have not been the best boyfriend, but I want to rectify that." I had hoped this conversation would yield a different outcome, but he repeatedly resorted to the same lies we had already addressed. I don't believe he comprehends that I had seen the inappropriate material he was viewing and had taken pictures of it. During this entire time, I maintained my composure because I knew I was right. I suggested we play a game where he would bring out his cleared phone, and I would show him the photos I had taken before the deletion, challenging him to spot the difference. I know it sounds sadistic, but it was the only way I could cope with the situation through humor. He appeared shocked when he glanced at me and realized I truly possessed pictures and proof, nullifying any possibility of him lying to me further. I deeply regret not confronting him with my findings the first time instead of continually meeting with him only to hear more lies. I read his card back to him, and it felt as though he had completely backtracked on everything he had previously stated. This was supposed to be his second chance. I feel utterly devastated and uncertain about what to do next. He was my first love, and everyone believed we were meant to be together in the long run. I wish there was a way to fix this situation, but I do not know how to overcome the feelings of animosity and resentment I have towards him. A few months ago on our 2-year anniversary, he gifted me a ring. I attempted to return it, but he refused to take it back. In a moment of frustration, I considered throwing it into a nearby river. However, I could not bring myself to do so I returned home a short 3-minute walk and retrieved the box it came in, placing all the memories I wanted to remove from my house into a bag. I found him on the other side of the fence, searching for the ring I had discarded. I asked him to take the bag, as I no longer wished to be involved in this situation. I requested that he inform all the people he cared about that we were no longer together and explain the reason why. He insisted that he wanted a second chance and urged me to reconsider. I reminded him that this was supposed to be his second chance. He began to cry, and I could perceive that he felt remorse, guilt, and shame. Honestly, I am more upset about the fact that he repeatedly lied to me than about the discovery itself. I know that if I did not have physical proof, I would have likely begun to trust him again. I was happy with him even during difficult times, and I had envisioned a future with him. Now I am lost about what to do. I know it is not ideal, but I find myself wanting to give him another chance. He possesses many admirable qualities, and it is disappointing that he could not overcome his addiction. I wish I could be oblivious enough to overlook this as just another bump in our relationship. I wish I could remain with him. I wish I could forget that any of this happened. I truly do not know what steps to take. Everyone around me thinks he is wonderful, and I have tried to maintain that image by not disclosing the issues in our relationship. I know that the most logical course of action is to break up. I cannot stop reflecting on all the times I cried in his arms during this ordeal, while he merely fed me more lies out of fear that I would become angry or upset. Then I think about all the joyful moments we shared and how I imagined what our future would look like. I recognize that he loves me and wanted to spare my feelings, and I know it may sound foolish. I understand this might be a convoluted story, but is there anything I can do if I choose to stay or if I choose to leave? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Story 5. My family always says I'm an asshole and nothing seems to change that. After a move for a fresh start at 37, my wife still blames me for her anger. I hate you and it's all your fault, she screams. Will I ever escape this cycle of blame and despair? I do not even know where to begin. I do not remember more than 2 or 3 fleeting moments that could be interpreted as happiness. However, from a very young age, around 6 or 7 and probably even earlier, I have felt as though no one likes me, that everyone gets angry with me all the time and that they blame me for everything. My words, tone, and body language are constantly perceived as aggressive, although they rarely are. This perception seems to persist. Everyone always believed I was an unpleasant person, and more often than not, I was not even acting like one. However, I'm sure you can guess what would follow. They would provide me with reasons that were not entirely accurate, and I never had the presence of mind to defend myself, so I would simply say, sorry, I was unpleasant. It seems I was made to apologize for everything and anything. This led me to believe that I was better off being completely alone, not causing harm to anyone, or simply being dead. I thought that in my 37th year on this planet, I would feel better, happier, and experience anything other than confusion and depression. Sadly, this distress has spread to the woman whom I would describe as my beautiful wife and to my 2 daughters. My son does not seem to share this view, but he is only 5. After experiencing a few breakups because of my mistakes and her resentment toward me, we got back together and relocated halfway across the country to a farm, hoping for a fresh start. However, it does not feel that way. I am told that I am unpleasant all the time. They are often angry with me, with only rare moments in between, like last night when my eldest daughter, who is almost 13, sat with me and talked for over an hour while laughing. Then this morning, like a skipping record, she became angry with me over something I do not even comprehend. Everything was fine until I went outside with my 7-year-old daughter and told my eldest that she needed to hurry. Then my wife came downstairs, and when my eldest came outside for the bus, she was mad. So I asked her what was wrong, and she called me an unpleasant person. Apparently, despite fulfilling her previous request to assist with her lunch by putting it in her backpack after it was completed so she would have a little more time, I do not help her in the morning. When she came out in anger, I did not even realize it was directed at me. According to my wife, when she observed me through the window, calmly asking my daughter what was wrong with my hands in my coat pockets, that was aggressive body language. Additionally, it seems I do nothing to assist my eldest daughter in the mornings. I will fully accept responsibility and apologize when I am truly being unpleasant, which can happen. However, I do not believe that it is how everyone describes it, that it is always my fault at every step. Now my wife wants to move back and separate because she despises it here. She dislikes me. She finds fault with everything. When she returns home from work, she is immediately angry about everything and complains about anything that I did not do. So once again, the woman I love with every fiber of my being, whom I cannot stop loving no matter what she does, especially after we have been apart, says she hates me again. She is always angry when she comes home because of me. Both my daughters think similarly. Despite my efforts to carefully monitor my tone, just in case it might be perceived as off to someone, to ensure everything is done when my wife arrives home so she has little to manage since she can become overwhelmed quickly, and to take care of everyone I love, I continually feel thwarted by whatever destiny holds for me. I cannot even get anyone to provide me with an example of how I am being unpleasant. They usually just dredge up the past or invoke things I said after I had been told I was being unpleasant so many times that I became angry and turned into one myself. This is now reaching a conclusion. It feels as though every single person on this planet shares the same opinion of me. I am just an unpleasant person, easily forgotten and left behind, replaceable. Despite my attempts, I will always feel like a loser, a failure, and an unpleasant person who has given everyone reasons to hate or resent me. My dream has always been to have land and a farm. Therefore, I am not giving it up and I will do everything I can to try to keep this place. However, I am sure that this would result in my wife taking my children back to their hometown while I remain halfway across the country. So what would be the point if I do not have my kids? One week, everyone loves being here, enjoying the scenery and their friends at school. Then the following week, they all despise it and it is somehow my fault. I am even blamed for moving everyone here, despite the fact that selling our previous home was a joint decision, and my wife found this property without any input from me. I just do not know what else to do. I have no one to confide in except my parents, who cannot help me, and I have no friends here or back in our previous home. Because no one can assist me, what I want is always something I will never receive, as I truly desire for my wife to be happy. However, she never is and she blames it on me. I conclude with this: I am very close to contemplating taking my own life. The only factors preventing me are my son and daughters, along with the hope that my wife will continue to love me. I want to witness their growth and be there for them if they seek my assistance, but I am terrified that they will all leave me when they are able because they despise me. They primarily do not ask me for much because they are scared I will become angry with them, which, yes, confuses me greatly. So what am I genuinely holding on to here? A wife who will not even commit to marrying me and tells me I am the reason for her constant anger. She fluctuates between discussing suicide and suggesting that people would blame me for it, and wanting to engage with me intimately, expressing her love for me, wanting to cuddle, and appreciating my efforts to take care of her, to then reverting to managing her own routines, her own food, and her own medications. This always transitions into, I hate you, I hate it here, I want to sell the house, and it is all your fault. At those moments, my daughters seem to eagerly join in with the sentiment of, you're just an unpleasant person and everything is your fault, resulting in mornings like today when I could not stop crying, feeling terrible, confused, and simply wishing for it all to end. Just for one single time in 37 years, I did not want to feel upset, angry, sad, guilty, or entirely depressed. However, the thought of any of my children or my wife experiencing even the slightest sadness from my absence breaks me even more. Why was I created this way? Is this truly all my fault? Am I genuinely just an unpleasant person? Sometimes I think that I must constantly feel this way so that those around me can experience happiness or anything other than profound sadness. But it seems to just seep into everyone and builds until I am there to absorb it all back in, feeling exponentially worse because everyone is on the I hate him bandwagon. I just want it to end, but I lack the courage to take the coward's way out. Each pain I experience in my chest gives me hope that it could be a heart attack, leading me to fall over without anyone knowing until morning when I am dead, entirely at no fault of my own. But then someone would discover me, and that thought pains me greatly as well. I belong far away from everyone where I cannot hurt anyone, and I do not have to deal with them, nor do they have to take their time to deal with me. Can you imagine being 6 years old and genuinely feeling like everyone hates you? I can relate. The deepening sensation in my chest has remained unchanged, as have the tears in my eyes. So I suppose I will simply continue feeling this way, eventually watching my dream be torn from my grasp, leading me to find myself drinking again, this time in a dismal apartment, until death finds me alone, the way my life appears to have been predetermined. There is much more to explain, but this has become too lengthy so. Summary, I attempt my hardest not to be an unpleasant person, but everyone continues to hate me and blame me for everything. Yet, I lack the ability to defend myself adequately to explain why I am not. I belong alone or dead.